Back at it. Adam Deal, Charles, Ashley, uSports Central. Happy President's Day. Happy 3-day weekend. That's the most important thing.
Hey, it's a 4-day weekend for the APS kids because they have in-service tomorrow, so they're living life right now, man. They're living life.
The best 4-day weekends, too, is when you have Monday and Tuesday off. Because then a short week up to Friday.
Yeah, they're gonna breeze through that. Unlike these teams coming up, they can't cakewalk through this week because it's a big week for district teams right now.
It is. We got special, too, tomorrow. We got 2 special coaches joining us. Yes. In fact, 2 state championships in the last 3 years between the 2 of them. Coach Coleman from Valley is going to join us, and then Roy Sanchez from El Dorado going to join us, all right here on set at uSports Central. Good Tuesday for us.
Yeah, and I'm going to praise Coach Coleman. I've been doing it all year. I always pick against Valley, but I always give kudos to the coach because he's such a great coach. And I think a lot of times people say, oh, well, you have talented teams or whatnot. I've seen Valley the 8 years I've been coaching out here, and last year was the first time that they actually had the most talented team.
Sure.
But other than that, he's maximized wins with this team. So great job by Coleman.
All right, 3 and out, Charles. The first topic, the Lobos.
Lobos.
Of course, everyone now knows. It's.
You look sad.
Look, the Lobos were supposed to win this, but I'm not surprised. I'm surprised at how it happened at the end. Their uniform was on point. Yeah. Let's just say it was on point. Yeah. But nothing else was in that second half. The zone defense, I think they hung around with the zone defense too long because Nevada figured it out. Coleman stepped up, 24 points, and the bulk of it in the second half, breaking down, penetrating that zone.
Yeah, he was dicing them up.
15-point lead. I told you I turned it away.
I did the same thing. Tons of people did the same thing.
And all of a sudden, it just turned into a nightmare for the Lobos. They lose in overtime. They only score 4 points in overtime. Nevada, they miss a free throw at the end, get a putback dunk, and it's just nothing went right. Hugh Greenwood finishes with 15. Sam Logwood, I love the way he's playing with 13 points. Delaney with 12, but it's still not enough for New Mexico. What do you think? They're at a 7 seed right now going into that Mountain West Conference tournament.
Remember the last time we said the Lobos are on a 4-game conference losing streak. Yeah. They're sitting at 7. They've blown a couple games late on the road, which normally you can't be too upset about, but when you're fighting and vying for different position, you need to close these games out. Greenwood did everything he can do. Delaney, I thought he could have done a little bit more, but I think what happened, in my opinion, as we turned away from the game, the Lobos did what we did. We assumed that this game was over. They turned off the intensity, and Coleman started breaking people down, getting to the basket, getting some free throws. And the best thing about free throws, when you're making them, Adam, the clock stops and you get free points from it. So hats off to Reno for keep fighting and forcing it to overtime and pulling off the victory. Not good for us.
Well, I think Robert Portnoy came on our show last week on Thursday, the voice of the Lobos, and he mentioned it. He said, look, they're not going to win the Mountain West Conference. The rest is just seeding itself for the Mountain West Conference tournament, and now you really have trial on where you're at. So I do believe that there could be some good that comes at the end of this season. The road is tough because tomorrow we're going to start talking about San Diego State, who comes to the pit. Obviously, it's going to be a big game. And then you have UNLV, who's still got all the talent that they have, even though
you still got to step up and win.
Like I told you, New Mexico does not want to be 7, 8, 9, 10 seed because then they have to play that first day in the Mountain West Conference tournament. You at least want to buy to the quarterfinals. Yeah. I'll tell you what, this is crazy to talk about. As good as we are, though, in the Mountain West Conference tournament, and as competitive as we've been with all the top-tier teams, no one is out of reach for a win. If the Lobos get like a 6th seed and play the first day, I think that bodes really well for them. I do.
But we're talking ifs now. And this is capital letter ifs, because with San Diego State and UNLV coming to town, both teams are playing for the same thing that we are. We're all vying for position in that Mountain West Conference.
I agree. I'm just trying to find some positive here.
The positive to me is that you still get to go to this tournament and still get to play yourself in. So if they can just focus on, hey, we have an opportunity. All we have to do is focus on the games right now.
Into the
tournament. you want to establish a streak, because the last thing you want to do is drop these 2 games and now you're going into the tournament on a losing streak. So you want to get some wins right now for confidence sake. But there's reports that they're trying to make some changes or whatnot. You got to do something, but don't be too drastic, because I think it can hurt the morale of your team too if you do some drastic changes. This, in my opinion.
Let's move on here. Topics, as we'll talk more Lobos tomorrow against San Diego State, but
This is what I want to talk about.
Hoops recap of this last weekend. Charles, we know it was huge. We'll start off with Volcano and Cleveland. We just went over the highlights of that one. But Cleveland now, what this means is they're in charge of district play. They only have one slip up in district play that was against Rio Rancho. So they got a game against Cibola, which is interesting because breaking news on Friday night, the reports came out that Christian Cunningham has been released from the varsity team. We don't know why. The reason hasn't been given yet. We've also heard sources say that another player.
There's two players. We just don't know the other player.
We don't know it. So,
let's hope they work everything out because he's such a good young man.
We're not going to really jump on it anymore, but that is what happened. So Cibola without Christian Cunningham is going to be a lot more difficult, obviously. So Cleveland, where I'm getting to, is playing Cibola on Thursday night or Tuesday night, and then they're going to go to Rio Rancho High School. That's going to possibly for the district, probably for the district championship.
Hope we get to see that matchup because we've been kind of forecasting, hoping that if both teams get to meet at the end of the season, how big of a crowd is going to be, the intensity of the game is going to be there, the magnitude, the scope of the game. It'll all culminate on Friday, which would be phenomenal. But as you mentioned, Cibola without a starter and Cunningham, it's going to be – you can't overlook them, Cleveland. You still got to focus on beating Cibola, but – on paper, they're looking real nice right now. We hope
to break that down a little bit later this week for the district championship. Valley Albuquerque High School, we went over those highlights. Charles, big win for Valley, come from behind fashion. What an atmosphere. That is high school sports hoops here in New Mexico at its very best. There was not a seat to be had in that gym. It was sold out. It was a great comeback. I understand. The Bulldogs have such a great season, but it's going to be tarnished a little bit because their seeding is going to suffer because of what's happened here.
Well, yeah, because you have a Valley team who struggled in the beginning of the year, so they piled up some losses. But I believe they're, I want to say something like 11-1 after the break or whatnot, which is a phenomenal record. But the Bulldogs, as you mentioned, it's going to hurt their resume a little bit because they have 2 losses to Valley. Even though they beat Valley once, they have 2 losses in district to Valley, which will drop them below. I can't see them on the road, though. If they end up on the road, that'd be a travesty or whatnot. But I think if they finish this week out strong.
The only way they finish out on the road
if
they
have
lose one this week to Rio Grande or West Mesa. All very interesting. Let's move on to Carlsbad and Hobbs. Obviously, Carlsbad returns the favor to Hobbs and wins on their own home court. Calvin Jones fouled out, though he had 12 points, 19 points for Jordan Gonzalez and the Hobb Eagles, but they come up short. They led most of the game. Carlsbad had a great third quarter to get back in this. Hobbs was in foul trouble most of the game, but 15 points from Shakur Smith. We talked about how big he is. Trevin Ramirez, maybe the most undervalued point guard, I think, in the state, and then 15 points for the sophomore Brennan Boatwright. He's got a big matchup in the middle there with Calvin Jones, and he was able to win.
Team. That's a good team right there. And when we watched Carlsbad, they attack. So I could see why your big guy can get in foul trouble because Shakur Smith, he's going to the basket relentlessly. Ramirez, I don't think anyone out here can guard him one-on-one. The kid is a lights-out athlete. And then Boatwright, just a sophomore, really polished with his post moves. He'll sit there, he'll face up, he'll post you up, little baby hook shot. So I could see that's a tough matchup for Hobbs, who rely on running up and down the court a lot. So if you can get them in a half-court game and you have some polished scorers like that, you can give them troubles.
Real quick, Sean Jimenez's crew gets a huge win against Atrisco Heritage. Rio Grande, we said, needed it. They're on the bubble. Find out if they're in here in just a little bit as we'll talk about some bracketology. But Rio Grande with a monster win over Atrisco Heritage. Bracketology coming up next. Where do we have teams? Are they in? You'll find out right here. uSports Central. Happy President's Day.
No one knows.